you imagine if I used the F-bomb? You know what it would be? I tell people, it would be the electric chair.
There's the childish nicknames.
Very people who perpetrated the lies that I was an agent of Russia, like Adam Shifty Schiff and others.
The crazy conspiracy theories.
If you look for a job and you give up looking for that job because after 4 or 5 months you can't find one, you are considered statistically employed. We have
this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
This is the Rebel Alliance. If it had not been already, the precedent is now set that not only sitting presidents, but also former presidents and anyone running for president is above the law. Justice Juan had pushed back the sentencing date twice for Donald Trump's 34 convictions in his hush money trial because Trump was a presidential candidate. As president-elect, Trump finally faced a sentencing hearing on Friday. With just over a week until his scheduled inauguration, Trump was sentenced to unconditional release. He is still legally a convicted felon, but he will face no punishment whatsoever for his crimes. Not only does that set an extremely dangerous precedent, but it also sends a dangerous message to Donald Trump himself. With the legal system completely under control, and every news network firmly in his pocket thanks to the actions of ABC News, Donald Trump now has the perfect setup for starting a dictatorship. Who is going to stop him if he won't be held accountable for his crimes, if the news networks are going to only report what he once reported? Juan is a coward and is, at least in part, responsible for whatever happens during the incoming Trump administration. Does anyone believe for a moment that any Democratic candidate would have faced the same cowardice on behalf of the judge? Does anyone believe that any Democratic cannot have been sentenced to the full extent that was allowed by law? The crimes for which Donald Trump has 34 felony convictions occurred before he was the president, so the Supreme Court's unconstitutional immunity ruling does not apply to them, and still, the judge decided to let him walk free. The entire Republican Party is pushing for Joe Biden to be tried on made-up crimes, seemingly forgetting that the Supreme Court's unconstitutional immunity ruling means that President Biden also has immunity. Or is your interpretation of the ruling that only Trump has immunity? That begins to sound like another form of government that's not a democracy. Dictatorship, maybe? Meanwhile, the cases for election subversion, stealing classified documents, selling United States military secrets to our enemies have all been brought to an abrupt halt. It is, after all, in poor taste to try to bring the new dictator to trial. Does anyone have the guts to even say that what is happening is wrong? Does anyone have the guts to prevent Donald Trump from becoming the dictator of the United States and save our great nation? Donald Trump is ineligible to be the President of the United States per Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The amendment reads as follows: No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress, or elector of president or vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States, or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Those are the exact words of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. It doesn't matter if he was elected or if his election was certified. He's not eligible to be the President of the United States. I want to draw your attention to several key phrases and also words that are absent from the amendment in order to support my statement. First of all, the word convicted never appears in the amendment. You do not have to be convicted of these crimes to be ineligible to hold the office of president. Next, I want to point out the phrase, given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. If you are attacking the United States Capitol building and looking for the vice president to hang him, you are an enemy of the United States. And whether or not Donald Trump started the insurrection, he did provide comfort to the insurrectionists on live television. Lastly, Congress does not have to vote to make the person ineligible to hold the office of president, nor does the Supreme Court have to make a ruling. If that were the case, there would be no need for a method to overturn the ineligibility. The fact that there is a method to overturn it implies that the ineligibility happens automatically. This means that on Monday, we will inaugurate a president that is not eligible to hold office. Still ahead on Rebel Alliance, we'll take a look at this week in history. I'll also explain the inconsistency in posting new episodes. First, let's go looking for those people whose elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. This week's most moronic morons. In third place, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has been vocal about his plans to attend the college football national championship between Notre Dame and Ohio State. However, the game takes place on January 20th. Have you checked your calendar, JD? Is there anywhere else you're supposed to be on January 20th? He then took it a step further by posting about how surely he would be forgiven for missing the inauguration to attend the football championship. Idiot. In second place, it's the missing link, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marge has come up with a solution to end the wildfires in California. Since Democrats know how to control the weather, we just need to make it rain over the wildfires. She's not the only one blaming Gavin Newsom for the wildfires, but her rhetoric about controlling the weather, well, that takes stupid to a whole new level. But in first place, it's Rudy Giuliani. The former New York mayor began a trial on Thursday to determine whether he had been trying to shield his Palm Beach condo from confiscation by claiming it as his homestead. He requested a delay in the trial to enable him to attend the inauguration of Donald Trump. His lawyer said that he regularly consults with Trump and wants to exercise his political right to be there. Rudy, as the judge put it, the defendant's social calendar does not constitute good cause to delay the trial date. But thanks for playing, and your consolation prize is the dishonor of being this week's most moronic moron. And now, a look at this week in history. On January 13th, 1968, Johnny Cash performed at Folsom Prison. At the time, he was facing severe depression and a decline in his music career. The set list for Folsom Prison was tailored to the prisoners, as Cash felt a connection with them, despite having never done time in prison himself. Cash would continue to crusade on behalf of prisoners the rest of his career, and even met with President Richard Nixon in 1972 to discuss prison reform. Live at Folsom Prison remains one of the best-selling live albums of all time. On January 14, 1970, Diana Ross and the Supremes performed their final concert. The most successful girl group of the 60s, the Supremes played their final show at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas. The long and drawn-out breakup of the Supremes is said to have started in 1967, when Motown Records chief Berry Gordy started giving Diana Ross top billing over the Supremes, a hint that he intended to launch her on a solo career. Shortly after Florence Ballard was forced out of the group by the label, Diana Ross left the group, and the Supremes were no more. On January 15, 2001, Wikipedia went online. It was the successor to Nupedia, a failed website that was also supposed to be a user-moderated online free encyclopedia. It proved to be much more successful than its predecessor. As of January 2024, Wikipedia has more than 6.8 million articles in more than 300 languages. On January 15, 1972, Don McLean's American Pie hit #1 on the pop charts. The story of the song began 13 years earlier with the February 3, 1959 plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and J.P. Richardson. The song told the story of the day the music died and etched itself into the American popular consciousness. More than 50 years later, people are still trying to decipher some of the more ambiguous lyrics. On January 16, 1945, Adolf Hitler descended into a bunker where he had decided to remain for the last part of World War II. He was there for 105 days. Warned that Russians were closing in, both Hitler and Eva Braun swallowed cyanide capsules. Hitler also shot himself with his pistol. On January 17, 1966, NBC ordered 32 episodes of a new TV series, The Monkees. The show would center around a fake pop group and their shenanigans. The network had no idea that the Monkees would become a real pop group and make records that would outsell even the Beatles. On January 19, 1999, the first BlackBerry device hit the market. The device, the BlackBerry 850, was a two-way pager with email capabilities. The company who made BlackBerry, Research in Motion, would continue making phones and dominate the cell phone market for almost a decade before losing popularity to Apple's iPhone. On January 19, 1993, Production began on the film Toy Story. Toy Story was the first full-length film made by Pixar Animation Studios, and the first film to be entirely computer animated. As Pixar's first collaboration with Disney, Toy Story was released in 1995 and received universally positive reviews. To date, Toy Story has spawned 3 sequels, a spin-off movie, and an animated series. And that's this week in history on Rebel Alliance. The last couple of weeks, new episodes of Rebel Alliance have been a bit sporadic. There wasn't an episode at all last week, and this week's episode is 2 days late. The reason why is because I had to have emergency surgery and spent a week in the hospital. Everything is fine, but it took a lot out of me. I hope to be back on my normal schedule next week. As always, since Donald Trump is so obsessed with crowd sizes, how about in 3 days we show him the biggest crowd to ever peacefully protest a presidential inauguration? Remember to do your part by not patronizing businesses that support MAGA. Let's bankrupt them. Thank you, Rebels, for being part of the Alliance, and thank you for listening. If you know someone who should be listening to Rebel Alliance, please send it to them and ask them to subscribe as well. So that's Rebel Alliance for this week. 3 days until the inauguration of ineligible lame duck sex offender president convicted felon Donald Trump, and 209 weeks until the scheduled end of his illegitimate presidency. Do what you can to resist, and in the meantime, keep breathing, drink water, take your vitamins and meds, and sleep when you can. Until next time, never back down.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from me, and he shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.